Hello, my name is Robert Larson. I'm an attorney and I'm also the owner of Arsenal Law in Mesa, Arizona. We've been in business for 15 years, although up until recently we were known as Larson Law Office, and we recently changed to Arsenal Law. And today I want to talk about the 7 numbers that you need to know to calculate child support in Arizona. So the actual formula for child support is pretty extensive, and it includes a lot of average cost of living adjustments for various expenses like housing, utilities, transportation, insurance, groceries, etc. And so the actual formula is, I've heard it's over 100 pages long. I haven't verified that myself, but it includes a lot of information about the cost of living. But what they do is they break it down into a worksheet where you only have to input a certain number of figures. And these are the 7 figures that you always need. Some cases might involve a few more, but today I'm going to talk about the 7 figures that you always need to know to calculate child support. And if you have these figures, you can plug them into the worksheet and it will tell you what child support is going to be. And so, first of all, I want to talk about the philosophy of child support in Arizona and what the calculation is based on. So basically, what Arizona law tries to do is they try to figure out how much parents would be spending on the direct support of their children if they were still together. And so the formula tries to recreate that by figuring out how much the parents on average are spending directly for their children to support them. And then what they do is they try to make adjustments based on parenting schedules and other credits that go into the formula. So I think that'll make a little more sense when I go through the factors. So the first two I'm going to handle at the same time because they're pretty much the same thing. It's the income for both parents. So those are probably the 2 most important factors. And when it comes to incomes, I don't want to get too much into detail about how to figure out what the incomes are because that could be the subject of a different video all by itself. But for some people, your income is very easy to figure out. It's either an hourly rate that you get paid and you get a regular paycheck every week or 2 weeks or whatever. And some people get an annual salary. That's, again, very simple. Some people have jobs that are a little bit more complicated. They have irregular work, seasonal work. Other people might be earning overtime or working second jobs and things like that. So some people earn commissions and other people are self-employed. So there can be complications with figuring out what people earn. But once you know the incomes of both parents, you can plug those 2 figures into the formula. And I will say, if somebody is not working voluntarily, the courts will put something down for their income unless you're disabled. So for example, if you choose not to work, that's fine. But when it comes to child support, the court's going to put something in for your income, even if it's minimum wage at full time. They're going to plug in something for child support purposes. So if you choose not to work, that's fine, but you can still be held accountable for income even if you're not earning it. Or if you're capable of earning more than you are, they can do that as well. So anyway, the first 2 factors are the incomes of both parents. Now the third factor is whether or not you have any minor children, or whether either parent has any minor children. And what that does is it acts as a deduction of your income. So there's 2 ways that could be put into the formula. One is if you have children living with you, then based on your whatever your income is and the number of children, the formula gives you a deduction off of your income. And then if you have a child that you're paying child support for, then instead of getting just a deduction that the formula automatically puts in for you, what you do is you put the amount that you pay for child support each month, and that gets deducted from your income. So if you have other minor children, that basically acts as a deduction of income because you have a legal obligation to support them. So the fourth factor is spousal maintenance, and this would only apply to 2 parents who were married to each other and got a divorce. So if you were never married, then this one is going to be 0, and you can just move on. But if you have a divorce where one spouse is paying spousal maintenance to the other spouse, in some states they might refer to it as alimony, but basically it's a monthly payment that you pay. And so that is going to act as a deduction of income for the parent who's paying spousal maintenance, and it's going to be in addition to income for the parent who's receiving it. Okay. Then the fifth thing is the parenting schedule. So a lot of people have a 50-50 schedule. That doesn't automatically mean that you don't pay child support. It's just one factor that goes into the formula. But obviously, the more you have your children, the less you're going to pay in child support. Of course, the more you have your children, the more you're going to be paying for them directly. And so that's why it's a deduction. So if you don't have a 50-50 schedule, what you have to do is you have to choose in the worksheet which parent has the children the majority of the time. And then for the parent who doesn't have them the majority of the time, then you have to put in the number of days that they're going to have them during the year. And so at that point, you reach the level where, like I said at the beginning, the philosophy is they want to figure out what the support would be if you were still together. And so at that point, you reach the basic support obligation. And it might say that, for example, the father um, is obligated to pay $1,000 a month support for the children, and the mother's obligated to pay $500 for the children. And obviously, you wouldn't have both of them paying each other. What would happen is the father would be paying the mother $500 at that point. However, there are two more factors that need to go into the formula, and these are basically credits. So once you have that basic child support obligation, these next two factors serve to either reduce or increase the amount that the person paying child support is going to pay. So the first one of these is insurance for the children. So this is health insurance, and the only amount that goes into this calculation is the additional cost to add the children. So if you have a health insurance policy, let's say you're paying it through your work, and you have 2 children, and your insurance is you and the 2 children, and it's $300 a month. How much is it to insure your children? Well, ideally, you find out how much it would cost if it were just you. And then you add the additional amount that it costs to add them um, to the policy. Sometimes you don't have that information available, and so you just have to go off of an average. So in this situation, let's say the cost to insure yourself is $200, and then it's an extra $100 to add your 2 children. So the number that would go into the formula would be 100, because that's the additional that you're paying to add the children onto it. But if you didn't know, like if your health insurance policy didn't break it down for you, they just said it's a family policy and it's $300, then you would take it an average. So you have 3 people, $300, that would be $100 per person. So in that situation, you'd put $200 down. And so that acts as a credit. So whoever's paying that is going to receive a credit in the child support. So um, in other words, if you're the one who's already paying child support, then your share of health insurance that you're paying would reduce child support. But if the other parent's paying it, then it might increase, so that you pay your share of health insurance through child support. Anyway, the 7th one is also a credit, and that's the cost of childcare. So if you have a childcare expense, that factor is going to go into the formula as well, and whoever's paying that will receive a credit for child support as well. So those are the 7 numbers that you always need to know to calculate child support. And if you have those 7 figures for 99% of the time, those 7 figures will tell you what the child support is going to be. Now, sometimes there are extraordinary expenses. Those are typically for children who have disabilities, that have special needs requirements that create additional expenses. It could also be for gifted children. So it could also be for tutoring. Sometimes even private school can be considered one of these extraordinary expenses. So sometimes there's extraordinary expenses, but I don't want to get into that too much, because that could be all kinds of different things. But the 7 factors that I told you about: income of both parents, other minor children, spousal maintenance, parenting schedules, health insurance for the children, and the cost of childcare. If you know those things, you can plug those into a child support worksheet, and within a couple of minutes, you can know what child support is going to be. So if you have any questions, let me know. Any comments, I'll be happy to respond. And hopefully you found this helpful. If so, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel so that you can get more videos like this in the future. And if you ever need anything, you can always contact our office. Thanks.